Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shila Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtar Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Mahabhagavat Shila Gokshalas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Nuvariya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shajiv Gopal Patidash Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rishi Gaur Parshad Vrind ki jai. Namachay Shri Ras Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जाय। सर्व विश्व विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जाय। श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जाय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जाय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाय की जाय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। सुनीता गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Today is a very short reading, so even though I am late, it's no problem. We're still going to finish early. I'm only reading 4,200 words today. Usually we read about 5,500. And today is Abhiram Thakur's disappearance day. Jai Shri Abhiram Thakur ki Jai. Today Shubha, what is it? Oh, it's not written in here. I thought I saw it in the calendar. Anyhow, today Shubha Abhiram Nathira Bhaktiti ki Jai. Okay. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namane. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. Kuruve gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna bhaktaya tarbhaktaya namo namaha. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya tarabobhinedu stam sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatang swakata Krishna punya shavana kirtana hridantasto hyabadrani vidhunoti suritsatam. Nashta prayashvabadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Tavaivasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvam nayamang charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparadha lakshay kshiptashtakama titaranga madhe Kripa Tam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What the heck happened to my preview thing? One second, I need to close this and open it again. And Dandavat Pranams, Indira Mataji, and Bajuna Prabhu, and Madhavi Didi. And Raseshwari Mataji, Dandavat Pranams to all of you. There. Oh yeah, I finally scanned this whole book. So if anybody wants this file, let me know. I can send it to you. Where are we? All right. So let's just read from here. So upon the departure of King Anga, the sages, they coronated his son Vena as king. The sages headed by Brigu, who always thought of the welfare. One second, I just want to see where we're reading from 23 to 46. Okay, just need to see. Okay, so the sages headed by Brigu, who always thought of the welfare of the people, could see that without a ruler, people would stoop to the level of animals, being independent and non-regulated. They called the queen Mother Sunithā, and with her permission, they enthroned Vena as king, although the ministers disagreed. Vane's cruelty was well known. Therefore, when thieves heard about his coronation, they became very much afraid and hid themselves. When Vane ascended the throne, he became proud of his wealth in all 8 directions. He considered himself the greatest and began insulting great personalities. Blind, intoxicated, proud, and uncontrolled, he traveled everywhere, causing the earth and sky to tremble. Sounding kettle drums throughout the countryside, he forbade all Brahmins to perform sacrifice, charity, and religious activities. The concerned sages planned to meet Vena and pacify him. Seeing Vane's atrocities and considering the danger of the people, the sages discussed amongst themselves out of compassion. The people are in danger from both directions due to an irresponsible king and thieves and rogues. It is like a log with fire blazing at both ends. Fearing a state without a king and the resultant political crisis, we made unqualified Vane king. But now the people are being disturbed by the king himself. By nature, he is very mischievous because of being born from Sunithā. Supporting this wicked king is like maintaining a snake with milk. We appointed him to protect the citizens, but now he has become their enemy. We should try to pacify him so that his sins do not affect us. If he does not accept our advice, we shall burn that sinner to ashes with our powers. He is already condemned by public criticism. Note: saintly people are not interested in political matters, yet they are always concerned about the welfare of people in general. Having thus decided, the sages approached Vena. Concealing their anger, they spoke to pacify him with sweet words. So that now the sages try to pacify Vena. Please hear our good advice. Please hear our good advice attentively. Doing so will increase your life duration, your opulence, fame, and strength. Those who follow Dharma with words, body, mind, and intelligence become free from miseries. Thus, being freed from material influence, they achieve liberation. Your activities should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of your citizens, as this will lead to your fall down from the royal position. A pious king who protects the citizens from mischievous ministers, thieves, and rogues can accept taxes and enjoy both in this world and in the next. A pious king in whose state varnashram is strictly observed and where all citizens worship the Supreme Lord by their occupations gives satisfaction to the Lord. And when the Lord is satisfied, what is impossible to achieve? For this reason, all the demigods and the inhabitants of various planets take pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship. The Lord is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices, the sum total of the 3 Vedas, the owner of all ingredients for sacrifice, and the ultimate goal of austerity. Therefore, you should direct your citizens to worship the Lord through sacrifices for your prosperity. When the demigods who are expansions of the Lord are satisfied, they will give you your desired results. But if you stop the sacrifices, you will disregard the demigods. Oh, and I guess I read up to 23 yesterday? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's begin now. Dandavat pranam Sakarvaraj ji. Where are we? 23. So when all the Brahmins engage in performing sacrifices in your kingdom, all the demigods who are plenary expansions of the Lord will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired result. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods. Vena uvacha badishabata yuyangva dharme dharmamanina ye vrittin dam pating hitva jaram patim upasate. King Vena replied, "You are not at all experienced. It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintains you and are searching after some paramour for worship." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Vena was so foolish that he accused the saintly sages of being inexperienced like small children. In other words, he was accusing them of not having perfect knowledge. In this way, he could reject their advice and make accusations against them, comparing them to a woman who does not care for her husband who maintains her, but goes to satisfy a paramour who does not maintain her. The purpose of this simile is apparent. It is the duty of Kshatriyas to engage the Brahmins in different types of religious activities, and the king is supposed to be the maintainer of the Brahmins. If the Brahmins do not worship the king, but instead go to the demigods, they are as polluted as unchaste women. Avajanantami murtha nriparupinam ishvaram nanu vindanti te bhadram ihaloke paratracha. Those who, out of ignorance, do not worship the king, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, experiences happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. Ko yagya purusho nama yatra vo bhaktiri drishi bhratri sneha viduranam yatha jare kuyoshitam. You're so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Indeed, your affection for these demigods is exactly like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives attention to her paramour. There's a line missing here. So let me go here to database.io. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. What verse are we on? Oh. 26, 27. Vishnurvirincha Girisha Indravayur Ravi Parjanyo Danada Soma Kshitiragnir Apapati Ete Chanya Chavi Buddha Prabhavo Varashapayo Dehe Bhavanti Nripate Sarvadeva Mayo Nripa. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Vayu, the master of air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kuvera, the treasure, the moon god, the predominating deity of the earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of waters, and all others who are great in competence to bestow benedictions or to curse, all abide in the body of the king. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all demigods who are simply parts and parcels of the king's body. Purport. There are many demons who think of themselves as the supreme and present themselves as the directors of the sun, moon, and other planets. This is all due to false pride. Similarly, King Vane developed the demoniac mentality and presented himself as the supreme personality of Godhead. Such demons are numerous in this age of Kali, and all of them are condemned by great sages and saintly persons. Tasman mam karmavir vipra yajadvam gatamatsara palingcha mahyam harata matanya kokrapuk puman. King Vane continued, For this reason, O Brahmins, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities, you should worship me and offer all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no personality superior to me. You can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices. Purport. As stated by Krishna himself throughout Bhagavad Gita, there is no truth superior to him. King Vane was imitating the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was also speaking out of false pride, presenting himself as the Supreme Lord. These are all characteristics of a demoniac person. Did I say demoniac? Demonic. Huh. Maitre uvacha itam viparyayamati papiyan utpatam gata anuniya manastad yachanam nachakre brashtamangala. The great sage Maitreya continued, Thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned. Purport. The demons certainly cannot have any faith in the words of authorities. In fact, they are always disrespectful to authorities. They manufacture their own religious principles and disobey great personalities like Vyas, Narad, and even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. As soon as one disobeys authority, he immediately becomes very sinful and loses his good fortune. The king was so puffed up and impudent that he dared disrespect the great saintly personalities, and this brought him ruination. Iti te satkritastena dija panditamanina bhagnayam bhavyayachnyayam tasmai vidura chukrudu. My dear Vidura, all good fortune unto you. The foolish king, who thought himself very learned, thus insulted the great sages, and the sages, being broken-hearted by the king's words, became very angry at him. Hanyatam esha papa prakriti daruna jivan jagar asavashu kurute bhasmasad dhruvam. All the great saintly sages immediately cried, "Kill him! Kill him! He is the most dreadful, sinful person. If he lives, he will certainly turn the whole world into ashes in no time." Purport. Saintly persons are generally very kind to all kinds of living entities, but they are not unhappy when a serpent or scorpion is killed. It is not good for saintly persons to kill, but they are encouraged to kill demons who are exactly like serpents and scorpions. Therefore, all the saintly sages decided to kill King Vena, who is so dreadful and dangerous to all of human society. We can appreciate the extent to which the saintly sages actually controlled the king. If the king or government becomes demonic, then it is the duty of a saintly person to upset the government and replace it with deserving persons who follow the orders and instructions of saintly persons. Nayamarhatta sarvrito naradeva varasanam Yodiyagyapatim Vishnu Vinintatanapatrapa. The saintly sages continued, "This impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu." Purport. One should not at any time tolerate blasphemy and insults against Lord Vishnu or his devotees. A devotee is generally very humble and meek, and he is reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes fiery with anger when he sees that Lord Vishnu or his devotee is insulted. This is the duty of the devotee. Although a devotee maintains an attitude of meekness and gentleness, it is a great fault on his part if he remains silent when the Lord or his devotee is blasphemed. Ko vainam parichakshita venamekam shubham prapta idrisham aishwaryam yaranugraha bhajana. But for King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kinds of fortune and opulence? Purport. When human society, individually or collectively, becomes godless and blasphemes the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is certainly destined for ruination. Such a civilization invites all kinds of bad fortune due to not appreciating the mercy of the Lord. Itang vyavasita hanto vrishayorudamanyava nijagnor hunkritar venam hatam achutanindaya. The great sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decided to kill the king. King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, without losing any weapons, the sages killed King Vena simply by high-sounding words. Rishibi swashama padam gate putra kalevaram Sunithā palayam asa vidya yogena sochati. After all the sages returned to their respective hermitages, the mother of King Vena, Sunithā, became very much aggrieved because of her son's death. She decided to preserve the dead body of her son by the application of certain ingredients and by chanting mantras. Mantra yogena. Ekada munayaste tu sarasvat salila pluta hutvagnin satkatash chakrur upavishta saritate. Once upon a time, the same saintly persons, after taking their bath in the river Saraswati, began to perform their daily duties by offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. After this, sitting on the bank of the river, they began to talk about the transcendental person and his pastimes. Vikshotitam stadotpatan ahurloka bhayankaran apyabhadram anathaya tasubhyo na bhavet bhuva. In those days, there were various disturbances in the country that were creating a panic in society. Therefore, all the sages began to talk amongst themselves. Since the king is dead and there's no protector in the world, misfortune may befall the people in general on account of rogues and thieves. Purport. Whenever there's a disturbance in the state or a panic situation, the property and lives of the citizens become unsafe. This is caused by the uprising of various thieves and rogues. At such a time, it is to be understood that the ruler, or the government, is dead. All of these misfortunes happen due to the death of King Vena. Thus, the saintly persons become very anxious for the safety of the people in general. The conclusion is that even though saintly persons have no business in political affairs, they are always compassionate upon the people in general. Thus, even though they are always aloof from society, out of mercy and compassion, they consider how the citizens can peacefully execute their rituals and follow the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharma. That was the concern of these sages. In this age of Kali, everything is disturbed. Therefore, saintly persons should take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended in the Shastras. Harer Nam Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva Gatir Anita. Both for spiritual and material prosperity, everyone should devotedly chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Evam Rishantam Rishayo Dhavatam Sarvato Disham Pangshu Sumatito Bhurish Choranam Abhilumpatam. When the great sages were carrying on their discussion in this way, they saw a dust storm arising from all directions. This storm was caused by the running of thieves and rogues who were engaged in plundering the citizens. Purport. Thieves and rogues simply await some political upset in order to take the opportunity to plunder the people in general. To keep thieves and rogues inactive in their profession, a strong government is always required. There's a line missing here. Tarupadravamagyaya lokasya vasulumpatam bhartaruparate tasmin anyonyam chajigang satam chora prayam janam padam hina satvam arajakam lokana navarayan chakta apita doshadarshina. One second, I need to clear my throat again. Upon seeing the dust storm, the saintly persons could understand that there were a great deal of irregularities due to the death of King Vena. Without government, the state was devoid of law and order, and consequently there was a great uprising of murderous thieves and rogues, who were plundering the riches of the people in general. Although the great sages could subdue the disturbance by their powers, just as they could kill the king, they considered it improper on their part to do so. Thus they did not attempt to stop the disturbance. Purport. The saintly persons and great sages killed King Vena out of emergency, but they did not choose to take part in the government in order to subdue the uprising of thieves and rogues, which took place after the death of King Vena. It is not the duty of Brahmins and saintly persons to kill, although they may sometimes do so in the case of an emergency. They could kill all the thieves and rogues by the prowess of their mantras, but they thought it the duty of Kshatriya kings to do so. Thus they reluctantly did not take part in the killing business. Brahmana samadrikshanto dinanam samupekshaka sravate brahmatasyapi bhinna bhandar payo yata. The great sages began to think that although a Brahmin is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect poor humans. By such neglect, a Brahmin's spiritual power diminishes, just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. Purport. Brahmins, the topmost section of human society, are mostly devotees. They are generally unaware of the happenings within the material world, because they are always busy in their activities for spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, when there is a calamity in human society, they cannot remain impartial. If they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes. Almost all the sages go to the Himalayas for their personal benefit, but Prahlad Maharaj said that he did not want liberation alone. He decided to wait until he was able to deliver all the fallen souls of the world. In their elevated condition, the Brahmins are called Vaishnavas. There are two types of Brahmins, namely Brahman Pandit and Brahman Vaishnav. A qualified Brahmin is naturally very learned, but when his learning is advanced in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes a Brahman Vaishnav. Unless one becomes a Vaishnav, one's perfection of Brahminical culture is incomplete. The saintly persons considered very wisely that although King Vena was sinful, he was born in a family descending from Dhruva Maharaj. Therefore, the semen in the family must be protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Keshav. As such, the sages wanted to take some steps to relieve the situation. For want of a king, everything was being disturbed and turned topsy-turvy. Nangasya vanksharajarsher esha sangstatumarhati amoga virahindripa vanshesmin keshavashraya. The sages decided that the descendants of the family of the saintly King Anga should not be stopped. For in this family, the semen was very powerful, and the children were prone to become devotees of the Lord. Purport. The purity of hereditary succession is called Amoga Virya. The pious seminal succession in the twice-born families of the Brahmins and Kshatriyas especially, as well as in the families of Vaishyas also, must be kept very pure by the observation of the purificatory processes beginning with Garbhadhan Sanskar, which is observed before conceiving a child. Unless this purificatory process is strictly observed, especially by the Brahmins, the family descendants become impure, and gradually sinful activities become visible in the family. Maharaj Anga was very pure because of the purification of semen in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. However, his semen became contaminated in association with his wife Sunithā, who happened to be the daughter of death personified. Because of this polluted semen, King Vena was produced. This was a catastrophe in the family of Dhruva Maharaj. All the saintly persons and sages considered this point, and they decided to take action in this matter, as described in the following verses. Vinishchityaya marishaya vipannasya mahipate mamanthur urum tarasa tatrasir bahuko nara. Mamanthur means turning, uram means, uram means arm. No, uru means thighs. Yeah, uru. After making a decision, the saintly persons and sages turned the thighs of the dead body of King Vane with great force and according to a specific method. As a result of this churning, a dwarf-like person was born from King Vane's body. Purport: that a person is born by churning that a person is born by the churning of the thighs of King Vane proves that the spirit soul is individual and separate from the body. The great sages and saintly persons could beget another person from the body of the dead King Vena, but it was not possible for them to bring King Vena back to life. King Vena was gone, and certainly he had taken another body. The saintly persons and sages were only concerned with the body of Vane because it was a result of the seminal succession in the body of Maharaj Dhruva. Consequently, the ingredients by which another body could be produced were there in the body of King Vane. By a certain process, when the thighs of the dead body were turned, another body came out. Although dead, the body of King Vane was preserved by drugs and mantras chanted by King Vane's mother. In this way, the ingredients for the production of another body were there. When the body of a person named Bāhuka came out of the dead body of King Vane, it was really not very astonishing. It was simply a question of knowing how to do it. From the semen of one body, another body is produced, and the life symptoms are visible due to the soul's taking shelter of this body. One should not think that it was impossible for another body to come out of the dead body of Maharaj Vane. This was performed by the skillful action of the sages. Kaka Krishna Tihara Swango Rasva Bahur Mahahanu Rasvapan Nimna Nasagro Raktakshas Tamramurtaja. This person born from King Vane's thighs was named Bāhuka, and his complexion was as black as a crow's. All the limbs of his body were very short, his arms and legs were short, and his jaws were large. His nose was flat, his eyes were reddish, and his hair was copper-colored. Tang tute vanatam dinam kim karomiti vadinam Nishiteta bruvangstata sa nishadastato bhavat. He was very submissive and meek, and immediately after his birth he bowed down and inquired, "Sirs, what shall I do?" The great sages replied, "Please sit down." Nishida. Thus Nishida, the father of Naishada race, was born. Purport. It is said in the Shastras that the head of the body represents the Brahmins, the arms represent the Kshatriyas, the abdomen represents the Vaishyas, and the legs, beginning with the thighs, represent the Shudras. The Shudras are sometimes called black or Krishna. The Brahmins are called Shukla or white, and the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are a mixture of black and white. However, those who are extraordinarily white are said to have skin produced out of white leprosy. It may be concluded that white or a golden hue is the color of the higher caste, and black is the complexion of the Sudras. Tasya vangshyas tunaishada Kirikana nagochara Yena harajaya mano Vena kalmasham ulpanam. After his, Nishada's birth, he immediately took charge of all the resultant actions of King Vena's sinful activities. As such, this Nishada class are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, and hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and forests. Purport: the Nishadas are not allowed to live in cities and towns because they are sinful by nature. As such, their bodies are very ugly, and their occupations are also sinful. We should, however, know that even these sinful men, who are sometimes called Kiratas, can be delivered from their sinful condition to the topmost Vaishnava platform by the mercy of a pure devotee. Engagement in the transcendental loving devotional service of the Lord can make anyone, however sinful he may be, fit to return home back to Godhead. One has only to become free from all contamination by the process of devotional service. In this way, everyone can become fit to return home back to Godhead. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 9:32. Mam hi partha vyapashritya ye pisu papayo nayo yonaya striyo vaishastata shudras te yanti parangatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter of me, though they may be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Shudras, workers, can approach the supreme destination. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 14th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Story of King Vena. So tomorrow we will read about, wait one second. King Prithu's appearance and coronation. So the appearance of Prithu and Archie. The coronation of Prithu. Prithu humbly dissuades the bards. Tomorrow is a short chapter, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Oh my god. Tomorrow, the full chapter tomorrow is shorter than what we read today. Alright. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shala Guru Devi Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Once again. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Mahabhagavat Srila Gorkshara Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Sorry. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Patra Raghunath. Shri Jeev Gopal Pata Dashraghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Nam Achay Shri Ras Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vidvajra Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Tham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Amuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Oh, and very heartbreaking news. The present Acharya of Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, His Grace Srila Bhakti Bhushan Bhagavat Goswami Maharaj, entered into the spiritual abode of Sri Sri Radha Govinda last night. Right. The Srimad Bhakti Bhushan Bhagavat Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Kadiya Nitil Pravesh ki jai. Alright. That's all the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math today then. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sunithā Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. See you all this evening or tomorrow morning. Hari Bol.